Good day, everybody. Wolf Driver coming to you live on our weekly vodcast podcast. And got a good one for you today, as usual. Got playing in the background is or above me, below me, depending where you're seeing this on social media, is our most recent Wolf Driver on Tour adventure. Now, yesterday we went to the farm. The Wolf Driver on Tour is usually where we go to different trails all over the East Coast. You'll notice we're at night here. So this was just Saturday night into Sunday morning. I'm calling it the Ohio Valley because we were in, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know if we actually started in Pennsylvania or West Virginia, but the trail is called the Panhandle Trail. And it actually, the clock also, Rod, sorry. It actually goes from Pennsylvania to West Virginia or vice versa, depending on which end you were on. And I didn't actually realize what end we started on because it was all just trail to me. But somewhere along the trail, either where it ends, where it starts, or along there, is the Ohio River. We might have been paralleling it for all I know. We were at nighttime too, and I'm not that familiar with the trail. I've been there maybe 2 times. This maybe was my third over the past 15 years that I've been traveling with the dogs in this way on the Wolf Driver tour way. So in the Ohio Valley, it just it sounds, because we've never technically ran the dogs, any of my generations, in Ohio. So it sounds kind of far to me. I like that sound, actually. I hope to get to Ohio. There are trails right across the border, but we picked this trail in particular because the lay of the land from my research and the weather conditions were as ideal as we could be for this time of year. And what I mean by that is certainly these are Huskies I'm running, and almost all dogs have problems emitting heat. So heat is one of their worst enemies. Even hairless dogs. People think because you should never do this, but they think if they shave their Husky or double-coated dog that they're going to be cooler in the summer, and it actually works in reverse. They can be warmer. The hair helps to keep them cool and protect them. In the warmer months, nature actually makes it so they will lose their undercoat. So the air will make it through and help cool them, and there's still hair there to protect them from the sun and from other elements they might run into. So never, ever shave a Husky or double-coated dog. But I have a hairless Chinese crested, and she's a testament for never shaving them because she's mostly hairless. There's 3 different kinds. There's a full-on all hair. There's a hairy hairless, which we have, which is just hair on their paws and on their mane. So their body's kind of hairless, for lack of a better description. It gets a little bit of hair and they shave it. And then there's full hairless ones. But you can see her, and I'm just going to adjust the camera here so you can see better. You can see her actually has a tougher time dealing with the heat than the Huskies. So, and certainly the cold, but the heat, you would think, well, she's shaving, but the sun gets to her quicker, and there's no hair there to help deflect the heat, basically, and help create a breeze as they move through, just walking around or getting a little bit of wind, a little bit of a breeze. So it actually makes perfect sense to me because I've seen that in action, but people just don't believe it for whatever reason. So I'm going to talk about the video here so you can see my co-pilot who's in front of me, and the camera drifts a little. I apologize. He's riding what I call riding point. So when he rides point, he's making sure that what we're running into isn't like a down tree or some obstacle on the course. Even though I'm lit up, that might fall into the shadows and I might not see. Now, that's never happened. I'm very cautious, very careful, and always have the lights in the appropriate area that I need to see. But anything can happen. So I always am pretty preemptive about our safety. And you can see here, we're going through, I'm trying to see if I've got a better view of this, going through our gates, going through some ballarts. Ballarts are these poles on the trail, and that usually are just as narrow as my electric dog sled on wheels. So they're built basically just to let what my electric dog sled on wheels is built on, recumbent bikes, trikes, quads through there. Beyond that, they are too narrow to get most other, because they're trying to keep vehicles, ATVs, etc., off the trail, even though we see ATVs just go around them, especially at night. We actually ran into an ATV this night, and I've got a wingman. I call my co-pilot the guy that's with me on the trail. I call my wingman the guy that drives our van. He's the maintenance guy, keeps everything going, etc. We've got a question or comment. Please feel free to do that. My producer just let me know. So from Haley Stevens, good morning, guys. Awesome night ride. I'll be working and watching, so I won't hear too much. Lots of laughs. Thanks so much, Haley, for taking the time to comment, tune in. And I understand you're working and watching. I appreciate that. Yeah, so love riding at the night. That's one of my favorite times of day to do it. So we've got another comment. Alan Trent. Hello, Alan. How are you? Good to see you. I might have some work for you soon. Alan's a great guy. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. And for taking the time to give the shout out to me. So what I was saying with the dogs, I'm going to try to just move this around here and there, but not having much luck. Sometimes the camera will deviate a little bit. Like I said, we are at night, and it's hard to film this at night with everything going on. And what I mean by that is, as I was talking, being cautious, you never know. So all of a sudden I'll be riding and the dog's just out of nowhere. You don't hear anything. It's the quiet of the night. Just the dog's panting, basically. It's kind of surreal in some ways. But another comment. Cheryl Kovadak. Hello. How are you, Cheryl? Thanks so much for taking the time. Give a shout out. Carry on. So at night, you never know. Like all of a sudden, and this, I got freaked out a little bit way back in the day. We're talking in the 90s when I was kind of a newbie at this. And all of a sudden, sorry, trying to move my camera around there. And all of a sudden, dogs took off. And all of a sudden, I started thinking, what happens? They could be off the trail, because sometimes the trail, there's the forest, sometimes there's open fields, and I'm like, they could be taken off, and I might wind up in the river. I started freaking myself out. I'm like, whoa, I need to be lit up better. And we were back in the 90s where these LED bulbs weren't as readily available. They weren't known to me, at least back then. So flashlights were minimal. Maybe you could find a headlight you could wear on your head, but not lighted up like we're lit here. I'm sorry you're not getting a good view of that yet. But I got a little concerned. So that's when I purchased night vision goggles, military grade, so I could see around me in infrared. Now, they're a little strange to wear because they're like wearing binoculars and you lose some of your peripheral vision. But I figured it was better. And back then I didn't have a co-pilot and a wingman. It was just me because I had a limited budget and I was working a full-time job. So I had to come and go when I could do it. And that would mean any time of day. Of course, in the winter, I would go and it'd be really cold at night, because that's why we go in the summer in the night. But my job, by the time with the daylight savings time, we're on the East Coast. By the time my job was over for the day, it was dark. And I had to go because the dogs had to get their exercise. So you can see a better view now how we're lit up there. This is just a tip, what I find best. And because the dogs aren't running on the side here, I can do it. I put lights on the sides so I can light up the woods in the peripheral vision. So if a motion happens, it's going to catch my eye and I'll be like, oh yeah, there's a deer there. There's something I need to be concerned about here, whatever. Peripheral, and it'll get me to turn my head and look. I really like that. It's almost like I'm giving my age a little bit here, but cars a little bit even before me would have curb finders. So when you turn your blinker on, if you're going to the left, you're going to the right or left accordingly, not only blinker goes on, but these curb finders I call them curb finder lights that would actually light up into your peripheral to the direction you're going, so you could kind of start to see the way before you make the turn, so you could be more cautious and as safe as possible. So similar theory method here that I'm using. I also have the light in front. I have two lights in front, just to I'm trying not to, I use two because I'm trying not to blind anybody coming at me, because they could get so, like a deer in the headlights, so caught up in it because we look so unusual, kind of like a UFO from a distance. People are like, I didn't know what the heck that was. And they get so caught up trying to figure it out that they can run into you. So and plus respect. I'm just trying not to shine in somebody's eyes. So if you have multiple lights, I can keep them a little dimmer each light without hopefully without being too much in somebody's eyes. You don't see too many people out on these trails at night anyway. It's usually few and far between, but like I was mentioning, we ran into people having a party and running an ATV up and down the trail, which they're not supposed to be, but I'm not the police and I'm not going to rain on anybody's parade. It's not for me to say. I just wanted to make sure they saw us and they knew we were out there. So what I usually do when I see, sometimes you will see cars on the trail they're not supposed to be, or trucks, but they're usually park rangers. usually not at night unless they're doing construction. So I kind of figured this was an ATV. I move the heck out of Dodge. So I'll move way over on the shoulder of a trail when I have some. And I will just get out of the bike sometimes and make sure that they're going to hit me before they hit the dogs or the bike, because I'm going to be taller, of course, because a lot of my designs are low down. And if there's no shoulder, I'll usually have my co-pilot drop back and get on the side of me. So he'll have to take one for the team. He'll have to be out there in front or to the side. So nobody touches us, basically. I've had much success at it. Again, at night, you're not going to hit that much traffic, more people doing things they shouldn't be doing. But what I was saying about the coolness of the nighttime, it can be considerably cooler. And a lot of times, not always, depending where you go, but when you're talking the mountains, you've got virtually no humidity usually, or low humidity. That makes it so much easier because the humidity can be just as detrimental to the dogs, especially teaming up with sunlight. So to all of us, I mean, it's just harder to breathe, the air's heavier, and it makes it feel more stagnant and warmer. So we got to keep that in mind. I've been using, and you can vaguely see them, a lot of these Garmin, I call them my doggy dashboard. So I've got a lot of stats, basically, a lot of elevation, grade, speed, average speed, distance, temperature. That's a big one. Humidity. I carry another. The Garmin product doesn't let me measure humidity, but that's important. So I'll carry another gauge for that. So this all contributes, especially at night, because I can't get always a good enough visual on the dogs to know always the tether point. I can get an idea, but during the day it's much easier. So when I look at these stats, I can see, well, wait a minute, we've got a grade. You might not realize you're on a hill a little bit, because sometimes the dogs are still chugging along. They're pulling. They're what I call pushing, push to mush, but they're doing their thing. And you don't realize you're getting on a grade. And all of a sudden they start coming back a little bit. And you're like, whoa, are they tiring? What's going on? They're seeing something. I look at the grade instantly. The grade tells me how steep the hill is that we may be on. So I'll be like, oh, that's a heavy grade there. No wonder they're slowing down. I need to use my Dog Motorsports. We've got a question here. So this is from Dog TV 45T00. How different is riding at night? Do you need more time to prepare, more gear? It's probably better for the dogs. Great question. Thanks so much for it. I really appreciate that. So yeah, I started riding at night out of necessity because of, as I described, my job and the time of day with daylight savings time. But I grew to do it as I got more free time at night during the warmer months, because it definitely is better for the dogs. It keeps them cooler. I find personally that almost all my generations, I will say all my generations, liked it better at night. I don't know if it's the nocturnal animals that maybe are more prevalent, their scents, or if it's just they can't see as far. They have some infrared vision, better vision at night than humans. Maybe they still seeing something I'm not seeing, whatever. The mystery of the night, they just seem to enjoy it more. They'll actually have a better pace at night, I find. It's definitely cooler, of course, most of the time. But it is harder for me because of balancing this lighting that I was talking about, making sure you're not blinding anybody else that may be on the trail, and keeping it lit up all around me so I can see peripheral vision wise, so I'm not tunnel vision, what's going on, because there could be something the dogs are getting attracted to, and I want to prepare for it, move away from it, whatever. So the peripheral vision really helps. Then, as I was just talking, keeping an eye on the dogs, I can usually gauge how the dogs are feeling and doing by their position on the different rigs that I ride them on, that they engage with, that we do our what I call our mushing, that electric dog sled on wheels, the ATV, everything I do with them. So usually by the tether, that's how they're attached, you can tell, is it drifting back? So the dogs are either not as engaged, they're looking at something else, they're maybe feeling a little tired, or maybe it's too much for them, the heat, whatever. And again, I'm always cognizant of everything. So at night, those aspects, because you can't see the dogs as clearly. I do wear a headlight. The problem is with that negates, it takes away the ability of all the lights in front of me to work. And that's why it's a balancing act. So Once in a while, I'll turn that headlight on and I'll check the dogs in that way, but it's not a constant view. So it's definitely more challenging at night, but that's why I use all the gauges and take all the light balancing into consideration. We've got another question here. Cheryl Kovaduck. Hello, Cheryl, again. Always running home for the dogs. That's right. Always rushing home for the dogs. That's right. In the dark, vision is usually straight ahead anyway. Wolf driver patrol, lots of laughs. Carry on. So true, everything you say there, and that's exactly right. It is definitely that tunnel vision, what I call that tunnel vision effect. As you're saying, it's usually straight ahead. But these side lights, and I've only been able to do these curb finder lights, these side lights recently because of all the different LED light variations that these companies are producing. And I found these light bars that mount really well to the electric dog sled on wheel U bars. And that's what lights up the sides. And I feel like it might be a bad analogy, but almost like I'm at a stadium because everything is really lit up. The thing that what's darkest are the dogs. So I do, because again, once I put my headlight on, no matter what strength I put it on, I lose the ability to really see around me and in front of me. I'm only seeing the dogs, and that's not going to help me. I really, most importantly, need to see in front of the front dogs. So I also, if you'll notice, I've got a light underneath my feet there, if you can see, or underneath my footrest. So that's almost like clearance lights, if you will, or what they call under body lighting, under chassis lighting. And that is so I can see the dogs in the back, because they're the darkest, believe it or not in color, but lit up wise, because they are dark and they're creating that being together. They're just creating a blank spot for me. So I put that light under there and I can see their tails, and I can tell, are the tails coming back at me? Are they going ahead? Where they're at? And that tells me how they're running. Front dogs are a little easier to see because there's a little light shining on them from the headlight. Keep in mind all this too, that with all this light, I can't have the lights. I don't want the lights for the dogs that they can easily look into, because I don't want to impede their vision, certainly while they're out there. But also sometimes when you get a bright light, and these are pretty bright, in your eyes, you know how it causes you to, your pupils, I guess they dilate, and I just don't want any problems with the vision. So mounting on the side, they can't look into them, and above them at the angle we have, they can't look into them either. So it's really a good scenario. This is probably the biggest advancement I had in the lighting this year for running at night. On the rigs where the dogs are on the side, it's a little harder because I can't use those side lights as well as I use them here. I hope to come up with something, but we still do it. I mean, I still can see everything. I wouldn't go if it wasn't, if I couldn't see everything, because that is just like the experience I told you when I was back in the day in the mid 90s and running my first team, and we were at night, and my lighting was limited. And I just started thinking, what happens when we get off the trail and the dogs take me into the river? I won't know till I get there, so I can't prepare for it, and it could be catastrophic. So lighting is important. But running at night is, I say this a lot, I think, but it's almost like a surreal experience, because if you can imagine, I mean, your eyes are like closed. I mean, you have limited vision, of course, as I've been talking about, but you're like, where the heck am I? Where's the world? Am I back in the early 1900s? I mean, you can almost like there's no time markers. There's nothing. Of course, I've got lights that are lighting up what I'm doing, but what I'm doing is from early days of dog sledding's from back in the day. Of course, I've modernized it here, but it's like it's interesting, and it's just, I don't know, just what comes through my mind is the experience being pretty much immersed in nature, and it's exciting in a different kind of way. The best part, of course, is being able to get the dogs out during days that are too warm and nights that are becoming more manageable and better for them. That's the best part. So it does take a lot of work on myself and my people team, my Wolf Driver pit crew, because, we're usually driving in the night, either when we leave our destination or approaching it. So it's not like you're driving during the day and you're I'm going to say more awake, more prepared, maybe more alert. And when you're out on the trail, of course, I usually sleep at night. So being out there calling it midnight mushing is no joke. I mean, we a lot of times we go out there, we get started at midnight. And so it's work. And then of course, just dealing with the darkness, you get an issue with the bike, you got an issue on the trail. You have to take a little bit more time to evaluate and make sure of the situation so you can better address it. So it adds a totally different element to everything we do. I'll tell you a funny story just from the other night on this Panhandle Trail. We were actually we were stopping to water the dogs, and when I stopped there's another real quick note here on lighting. You want to position your lighting because it's going to attract bugs like crazy. You want to position it so the bugs aren't coming near the dogs and the bugs are coming near you. And what I mean by that is if I wear the headlight on, I keep it constantly on to see what's ahead of me, because when the dogs aren't in front of me per se, the bugs are coming to that headlight, and that's my face, and they're getting in your nose, up your nose, and in your mouth and in your ears. And with the dogs, I've seen the bugs just really agitate the dogs or become a problem for them. They start shaking their head to get them out of their ears, and they're around their eyes, and they're trying to maneuver. So it can be a nuisance, for lack of a better description there. I have a mesh net hat always on board with me if I need it. So it'll block out, because sometimes you can get so thick in these bugs and gnats that you can't believe it. And they're in pockets sometimes. There'll be a pocket right around you when you stop, especially. But even when you're going, sometimes you'll go through a pocket. It's really freaking nature, I call it. So we have to, by keeping the lights off the dogs, not in close proximity, and keeping them away from me, usually helps balance the bugs that are out there. That's why in fall, when the bugs have died off in the cold, it can be much more pleasant and much easier to navigate. But in the warmer months, especially when it's humid, woo, they're out there. So, but when we stop for a water break, again, you don't see as clearly the whole picture. And that's why it's not as attractive. I've had people that go at me, they're saying some just hate the nighttime because they're like, there's nothing to look at. You're just looking at the trail. You're looking at a little bit of forest or grass around you, but you can't see mountains in the background, and you can't see rivers down off the side. And it's just not as picturesque, of course, but it's got its own mystery of the night that's attractive. So we go to water them. And when I stopped, my co-pilot said to me, there's a ton of bugs in this area. And I'm like, really? I'm not getting them. Maybe because I'm not wearing the headlight. He's wearing it because his light, he doesn't have a big bar out in front to put a light. We're going to try to modify it. But he's like, they're coming at me left and right. And listen to that. And I listen, and all of a sudden I hear zzz. I'm like, that's not bugs. And he says, I'm telling you, it's bugs hitting the grass. I'm like, no way. So, excuse me, we have a question here from Ronald. Loving this info. This is super helpful. Thank you so much for taking the time to comment and giving me the shout out. I really appreciate that. And that keeps me going too, that people are taking interest in learning something here. So I'm going to teach you something right now, which my co-pilot hasn't experienced as many nighttime runs as I've done. So he's like, I'm telling you, that's the bugs. I'm like, no, it's not. And I'm saying it sounds more like a rain, but we're not getting wet. We look at the trail. There is no sign of any wetness. And look above us, there's power lines. That's the power. Sometimes you will hear electricity, especially in the quiet of the night in a remote area where there's not a lot of sound pollution around you. You can actually hear the electric. I'm sure when the lines are being used more, you're going to hear, depending on their voltage, etc., you're going to hear it louder. It was a trip. It was like, wow. We're like, what a place I picked to stop at. I mean, power lines don't intimidate me, but there's a whole open sky. And because I didn't have that full vision everywhere around, I didn't purposely stop under them, but it was right above us. So very, very interesting. And it's again, just something you come across. It's neither here nor there. It's not going to affect us. Haven't done this as lately, but because we're running at night and there's a lot of structures along these trails we run, because a lot of them are old railroads, they call them rail trails. And as we go through these old railroads, especially at night, you can really think about what it might have been like to live there back in the day. There's a lot of structures you'll pass, old bridges, just partial formations of them, remnants of them, old train stations, even houses that were along the way. And a lot of these structures are still standing. They're half dilapidated. We've actually gone into some, and a lot of times, believe it or not, at least the ones we go into haven't said no trespassing, probably because they're so far back there, they wouldn't think anyone would go there. But we started doing paranormal investigations and ghost hunting. And it was a big part of my gig, and I used to call it werewolves, WEREWOOFS, like Wolf Driver, WOOF. And we started doing that because it was a great way to rest the dogs for extended periods of time. While my co-pilot, we used to bring a few more people on the trail because it was interesting and people were interested. It was interesting and people wanted to get that aura of this ghost hunting. And what a better way to do it in the dark of the night on an abandoned place along a old railroad trail. So I attracted quite a crowd. They were friends and acquaintances that had similar interests. So the dogs would actually rest, and this is other generations of my huskies. They would take the time, they'd lay down, and we'd go in. Someone would always be with the dogs. I never leave them unattended. I don't know if you remember part of my Wolf Driver pit crew, old man Jimmy, and Jimmy still does some stuff for me, but he's getting a little too not as mobile to go on the dog trips as much, but he would stay with the dogs a lot of times, and we'd have walkie-talkies. How the dog's doing? I'm talking about going 50 feet or 100 feet away from them, so not far, and they would be patient while we would go inside of these abandoned structures or around them, and we would go do ghost hunting and paranormal evidence, seeing what we could find. We got a lot of paranormal evidence, actually. So I was not a big believer, but when you witness some of the stuff that I've witnessed, it could change your mind. If you go to werewolves.com, you can see a lot of the stuff we did. It is really fascinating. I don't do it as much now. Sometimes I'll carry some of this equipment with me that can take sound waves and make it into audible waves that a human can hear, and it'll convert it into digitized voices. So you can, and how some of this is the real deal, because if you can say something to the voice coming through the equipment that we use and it responds back with a relevant answer. Now, these are professional pieces of equipment, as professional as you can get in this industry, and or in the ghost hunting world, I should say. And it's pretty fascinating and pretty mind blowing in some ways. We got a question here. So this is from Jackie Crane saying hello to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to give me a shout out. I appreciate that so much. So, but some of this is fascinating. So I carry some of this equipment, and what would happen is sometimes you'd be going through an area and all of a sudden it would speak, and you know what you're looking for. I'd hang the speaker on the back of the electric dog sled on wheels on one of my bikes and be like, say something, and you'd be like, what the hell? And then I realized, I've got the paranormal equipment going on and it's saying something. And sometimes I'd stop and try to decipher what was going on. Some of the rigs I'd be running, they would be tandem, so I'd have a passenger and they would be able to be more alert to it, focus on it and address it and see if we could get a conversation going. But I noticed the power line. So the way this stuff works and some of the evidence, paranormal evidence, that's why they'll always try to dispute it, because you want to see it be as real as possible. When you get in your power lines, the electricity that they were giving off would cause the machines to go crazy. So, and that was false evidence. It's when you're not around anything and you get communications that you can talk to and you can start to make sense out of. That's when paranormal evidence starts to become a real thing. So just a little tidbit. It would just give us, because you're not getting all the eye candy of being out in the sun, the mountains, the rivers, and everything else, just something else to do while we're out there with the dogs. Dogs are the most important aspect. So on this particular trail, I told you about the ATV coming down the trail, and I did get a heads up because my wingman was going to each pickup point. So a pickup point, we call it, where a trailhead basically. So where the trail stops and starts, and that's where he could see, he knew because he's following us on our phone communications or satellite communications. So he knows where we're at, and he says, oh, they're going to come through here next. I'm going to stop there. We could talk to him at any time through our communications verbally, but he's going to stop there just to give us just do a visual eye over, make sure we're good. And when he got to one, he says, hey, be careful because there's an ATV running around here and you guys are low down. I just want to make sure everything's good. We got a question or comment here. So this is from Dan Rant 0029. Have you ever experienced a paranormal event while riding at night? So great question. And thank you so much for asking. We've had a lot of paranormal events happen. Most of the time, it wasn't while we were riding. It was on these dog trips, which I would call werewolf's adventures on my Wolf Driver on tour at night, usually when we went looking for something. So the first time I did it, and this is what drove me to do more of this, and actually I contacted a paranormal expert. I bet you didn't know there was one of those, unless you watch all the Ghost Hunter shows. And he went with us on a bunch of adventures. We became friends, and to this day we still talk. We haven't gone out in a few years on paranormal adventures, but maybe in the future. But the first one, this was very interesting. So I knew we were going to come across, because we were in an area that had a lot of on the C&O Canal, a lot of abandoned structures. And we were at night, and we knew we were going to have to give the dogs a bunch of rests because it was borderline hot, humid, etc. And we were remember, it's not more than a glorified walk when it's like that. And we were at night, though. We didn't have to deal with the sun. So I bought what they call a FLIR. A FLIR is a thermal imaging unit, and they use them a lot of times in HVAC work to see the temperature, how a unit's running, whether it's putting off enough heat, air, whatever, cool, if it's cool enough, if it's too hot. And they'll use it to see if there's leaks in houses, because you can see if windows are leaking or where is leaking in a house, if the heat or air is getting out, because you can see it thermally or visually. It'll show you hot, depending, you can change the colors, but you can sense hot spots, cold spots, etc. And it'll measure temperature. So I bought this FLIR attachment for my iPhone. They make separate units. I mean, these units can run thousands of dollars depending on the quality and how sensitive and accurate, etc. But my unit was a basic unit. It was still like $300. It would go on my iPhone. And I said, we're gonna see if we see anything interesting that we can explore tonight. So it's just my co-pilot and myself. I was riding a tandem electric dog sled on wheels where the dogs were on the sides, and my co-pilot was in the back seat with me. So we come up on a structure. So let's stop, give the dogs a rest. You go inside and check it out. I mean, we're two guys. We weren't worried about too much. And of course, I told you, someone always stays with the dogs. I'm sending him in the house because I'm going to be with the dogs. So he goes in there, and I'm like, 15, 20 feet. I actually didn't want to use the walkie because we didn't want to set anything off. We wanted to be as unelectric as possible because we didn't want to get false readings. So I'm like, hey, Rhett, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm almost in. And he's in there. He's like, I'm in. Everything's good. I'm in. Do we have a question here, Ron? Okay. So he's like, I'm good. I'm good. And all of a sudden, 5 minutes, I don't hear anything. And I'm like, I can't leave the dogs. So I'm like, I'll drive the dogs over there before I leave them. They're being cool. They're laying down. And all of a sudden I hear, whoa, whoa, whoa. And so I'm thinking someone's in that house chasing him down. I'm like, what's going on, man? What's going on? I'm like, talk to me. And he's like, I'm getting the heck out of here. I said, are you okay? And he's cussing. And I'm like, holy cow. But I don't hear footsteps behind him. All of a sudden he comes in the vision. He goes, I am not going back in there again. And I said, do we need to get out of here? Is there somebody in there? And he's like, no. He said, but I went into the structure and there's a set of steps, and up that steps through the thermal camera, you could see eyeballs. And he said, the eyeballs are looking to the left and to the right. And he said, I needed to get out of Dodge. I said, was it a person? He said, I definitely, to his best knowledge, it shows you an outline. It wasn't a person. It was either an animal or something else going on, but I don't want to find out, and I want to get the heck out of here. You can see it, and I'll try to post it in the comment section here. It gives me the chills talking about it because it was freaky, and especially because of our limited experience. And because, again, you're in the dark of the night, there's nothing there. This whole canal was built back in the late 1700s, early 1800s. So you're just like, oh my gosh. And believe it or not, the dogs are just as cool as calm as can be. So cool cucumbers. So we did get home and evaluate that further. And we didn't have any real epiphanies, except for we said, let's go back there with someone who knows what they're doing. And that's when we contacted a professional ghost hunter who has a lot more experience, more equipment, more knowledge, and he could better assess the situation and teach us something. It was interesting. So we went back with a huge crew. And I'm talking a huge crew. Had a lot of people interested. I mean, 10 people, 15 people. Had a professional photographer, had the ghost hunter, had 2 electric dog sleds on wheels, only one set of dogs, one team of dogs, because that's my dogs. I ride with them. The ghost hunter was riding with me because I had a lot of tandem bikes I was using back then, which means they're 2-seater bikes. And then I had a team behind me. One included the photographer, and the other was one of my pit crew guys. I think it was Red, actually. And we went through the night, and I've got so many stories about this adventure because it was the first legitimate adventure, Wolf Werewolf's adventure. But I mean, we even got pulled over by the cops that night on the trail because they had never seen anything like this. And we're traveling through with a bunch of equipment, paranormal equipment, and we're traveling through with 2 guys on these huge recumbent bikes, electric dog sleds on wheels that not many people have seen. These were all custom made for me, and a team of dogs. And this cop, because I was so respectful, he let me carry on. He's like, I don't even know if this is legal. And I said, officer, it is legal because I've done on this trail. And actually the trail is familiar with me. And they have told me what I'm doing is perfectly safe and fine for the trail. And they actually like it because I post a lot about it and it brings new people or interest in the trail. So we didn't mention too much about the ghost hunting because thought he might lose us there. And who knows what he would do. Real quick, funny thing is, I was when he was talking to me, we were on a live Facebook feed. This is one of our live feeds we did, one of the first ones, because we thought it'd be so interesting. And he's asking me all my license information, then he wanted my phone number, and I'm giving it out. My wife's watching this as a spectator on Facebook live, and she's like, "You just gave your phone number to." Back then, it was thousands of people watching us, and she's like, "Oh my God!" I'm like, I didn't know which end was up. I got a cop here, I got teams of people here with me, I got the dogs, I got this going on, and I'm paranormal investigating. So, in any case, we got to this house that we've dubbed the Hell House because this house we've had the most paranormal activity we've ever had, and according to the expert that we took with us, he's like, this is more than any ghost adventure shows on TV or anything. I mean, this was intense. It inspired me or encouraged me to buy some real high-end equipment, even more than the ghost hunter himself had. SLS equipment. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a light ray gun. And you shoot it, it can't hurt you. You can shoot at you can shoot at anything. And it'll give you an outline of what is there in the dark because it's light ray. It doesn't light up what's there. It detects it and it shoots all these light rays out and it does the outline of what's there. So you can shine it on a tree, you can shine it on a person, you'll see a person. Well, the issue is what happens is when it identifies what it calls an anomaly, something out of the ordinary. It could be a structure that it doesn't recognize, or it could be something else. So when you start getting these, sometimes you'll get these anomalies, which are basically stick figures. So it's looks like a human. It's not an animal, because if you had an animal, it would show you that shape. And when this anomaly starts moving, it's looking at it and giving you constant feedback on its iPad-like screen. So what happened is to see if that anomaly is just something in the air. Maybe it's, this had to be programmed. Maybe it's a dust or whatever, dust particles aligning in a similar configuration and it's making for this anomaly, it's telling you. Or is it something else? And here's how you test it. So you take your hand and you go to touch this anomaly. You're holding the light ray gun with the screen, which again looks like an iPad, and you shine it. Or you take your hand and you try to touch this anomaly. And if the anomaly responds and goes back like that or steps to the side or moves to the side, then you're dealing with something out of the ordinary, really extraordinary. We had that happen at this hell house. So, I mean, I could sit here all day and tell you stories, and they're fascinating. And this is, I'm not saying this because I'm not making anything up here. This is all the real deal. I do know, sometimes we get a lot of false hits using our walkie-talkies, being around electronic fields, etc. So, I mean, we always try to refute anything we get to try to see if it's just a tail of the tape or if it's the real deal. And a lot of times, especially in this hell house, we got unbelievable interactions. So we got a question here, and this is from @RotR6002 or 60,002. This is fascinating. Thank you so much. I'm telling you, it really is. It was I felt like I was transformed into a different universe. And keep in mind, while we're investigating with all the investigator, photographer, my team, etc., and extensive equipment, the dogs are with us. So the dogs are chilled, and I can hear them because I'm not that far away. And I've got old man Jimmy with the dogs, keeping them comfortable, safe, and they're just fine. They're next to the river, the canal, and they're fine. But I remember coming out of this place, and we've been there a few times. I don't know if that structure's still standing. It's like it was really dilapidated. We climbed the steps in it, and there's an attic. But another real funny story. So we get to the attic, and I told the guys to go up there. I'm behind them, like 3 or 4 people with me, and they're going up into the attic. And all of a sudden, I'm filming them. All of a sudden, they come like backwards down. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, whoa. I'm like, what's up there? Could be someone living there. There's a lot of graffiti on this site too. But they're like, I don't know, something big was like flying around. I don't know if it was a bat or what. It was just spooky. And I think they got a little taken of sorts because of this bat or whatever was flying around, a huge, who knows what. There were huge moths. There were huge wolf spiders in this place. Who knows what? But we did wind up going up there. I'm like, come on, we are going up there and find. I mean, I didn't want anyone to get bit by a bat. So, but it was all good. It was just we didn't see anything when we went out there. Now, I'm sure there were openings in the siding of this house. Like I said, when you stepped on the floor, you had to be careful you didn't go through. So we would test it first. I mean, this was pretty intense. About the coolest thing I ever did on one of my werewolves adventure. By the way, sorry, we're stopped in the on the electric dog sled on wheels in the video that's showing on the screen because we're taking a water break. So we take a water break usually every 2 to 3 miles. So usually every 20 minutes, half hour, depending on conditions, depending on dogs, etc. In the beginning of our runs, nighttime or daytime, we'll usually do a water break after a mile just because the dogs had been riding in the van to get to where we're going. So they were more amped up. They might need to stop more in the beginning or get hydrated more because in the van they might have been who knows what, but anticipating, panting more, etc. They're confined to their crate, and that's for safety purposes, and it's perfectly fine, but they weren't out in the open, so they might want to stretch a little, whatever. They're stretching by running. I don't warm them up per se. I try to start them slow, but they won't have any of that. They just start off fast. But that's why we're stopped, and plenty of water breaks. I'm getting back in the electric dog sled on wheels, etc. So the ghost hunting stuff is a lot of fun, and if you've never done it before, it's a cool thing. You can read all about it on my website, and there's plenty of information on the internet. These trails are a great place to do it. Again, a lot of trails. If you go to Rail Trails, railtrails.com is my website. But if you go to Rail Trails in Google, you'll see a multitude of trails. Probably, I'm sure if you put your area, there's some around there. And a lot of these trails, if they're rail trails, most of them have a lot of the old structures, even old trains sometimes that have been abandoned there. And you can't always enter these abandoned structures, but you can usually be around them in some distance. Sometimes they'll have them fenced off, etc. And you can do some ghost hunting that way too. So if you're interested, and there is equipment, there's a place called Ghost Stop that sells a bunch of this equipment. I know people are going to say, oh, a Wolf Driver, he's really out there. But there's something to say. I don't know what it is, but I've definitely experienced interactions that are inexplicable unless you start talking about paranormality, I call it, paranormal experiences. So there's a young lady that we did some wolf driver adventures with. Also, she's a paranormal expert, and she added another dimension. We'd go with our ghost hunter and her, and add it to the team. We did that back in 2021, I think it was, right during or after the COVID. I remember everyone still had to be masked up because a lot of these places wanting, especially, we actually, another quick experience. This is how extensive my repertoire of what I do is. We actually got the mayor of Williamsport, Maryland, which is near the C&O Canal. In some way, we became in a conversation with him. I don't know if he saw us out on the trail with the dogs, whatever. And he was pretty interested. He gave us access to City Hall there and let us do all the investigating we want. So, and that was with the young lady I was talking about. Her name is Para Ann, and with Curtis Weimer. He's the paranormal expert, the guy we would go with. And that was quite interesting too. Now, we had the dogs. We ran the dogs on the trail, the C&O, that night. And then we went to a couple different locations. In these locations, there was one where the mayor was at an old farmhouse that he was located. We came to, and that's where we had to be masked up because of the COVID. We were coming out of the COVID time. But we ran the dogs first, and then they went up in the van, and old man Jimmy stayed with them in the van while we went to these different locations that were not accessible by the bikes and by the electric dog sleds on wheels. So that's my dissertation on werewolves. But that always comes to mind, all this, when we're out on the trail at night. It's just, it's cool. It's fun, and just thinking about whatever your beliefs on paranormal stuff is, but just thinking about what it was like, because it's nighttime and it's hiding anything. It's hiding power lines. It's hiding anything that would be part of a modern society. So you can just sometimes visualize you being on the train or in the area going through the trail, the forest where the trail is, or the fields where the trail is. It's a cool thing. So that's fun, and that's part of the excitement for us, the Wolf Driver pit crew, the human part of being out there at night. And of course, for the dogs, it's a totally different experience. Again, I find they enjoy it a lot, and more than daytime running, believe it or not. And that makes it all that much more worthwhile. It keeps us going year round for the most part, which for me is so important, because I feel like it's just constant enrichment, physical, psychological, for the dogs. And that's just their way of life. There are plenty of like the Iditarod and stuff and I'm not interested in doing the Iditarod. I just mentioned it because there's a lot of mushers out there that will go at night on these expeditions, like the Iditarod, like these different quests they call them. I forget the actual, there's another big quest, the Yukon Quest. There's other ones where you might find them going daytime and nighttime. They have to stop certain times for the dogs at checkpoints and at areas to rest. Also, as you go further north, like you get into Alaska, real sled dog country, it stays dark like it does. It stays dark in the winter for, I don't know if it's a full 24 hours, but I'm pretty sure it stays light. I guess it is, because in the summer it stays light almost a full 24 hours, if not the full 24 hours. So you're gonna run the dogs at night during the colder, in the dark, I should say, and in the winter, whatever the case may be. They're probably not going. It's cool at night. They might go during the summer. I know they do ATV training, not like I do. They're doing, when I do mine, we call it dog roading. It's more about resistance work. But when a musher with a big team does ATV work, they usually have the dogs out on a traditional sled dog line. They have bigger teams than I'm running here, and that's why they're able to do that. So that's the night run here, and it was a great time. We've been doing a few night runs in the this past, I would say, past month or so, as the temperatures are starting to change. You'll see more of us doing it. That's just the nature of running the dogs, because of the coolness, as I talked about, the temperature, and it does add a different aspect to it. which is entertaining for them. These huskies need to be challenged constantly, so it's a totally different experience for them, as I've talked about, and it's fun for us too, which makes it all the excitement.
If you want to mention that the Werewolves is available on Prime, I'm showing it on the screen right
Oh,
now.
great. So yeah, I talk everything I do, I really do to the nth degree. So we've created a werewolves series that we have a couple episodes on Amazon Prime. So you can see, I mean, this was the real deal. We were doing it, and I talked about the experts. You'll see them in the episodes, and in the intro, you'll learn a little bit about them, and you'll really see some of these incredible places that we went to. We went to a train tunnel that was actually never finished. For some reason, they didn't complete it. So you can walk back into it, and it looks like you're in a different atmosphere, a different world. It's half finished. Looks like something like the beginnings of a volcano that's not erupting in maybe Hawaii. Really interesting. We also went to, we've done a few cemeteries, and the one cemetery was really eerie. I mean, it had these dials. It was called dial. When I say dials, like Raggedy Ann dolls, it was called I forget what it was called, but my the ghost hunter that was with us, the gentleman Curtis, he was familiar with it, and just some spots that most people don't know exist. We would really research this to get the best, I guess, experience, to maybe get some evidence and show people stuff that they didn't know about. We've got a comment or question here. This is from Rot R60,002. Wow, I'm watching it tonight. Thanks so much. And feel free. I love the comments, to add comments here even after the broadcast is over. I'll address them, or even any of the other posts I do. If you have a question about other stuff, please feel free, because I did it all. You can go back. I've been running dogs for better than 30 years now, doing the paranormal investigations. I think we started like in 2016, and it's been an on and off thing depending on who I'm going with and the team at the time, who wants to do what. I mean, we could do it ourselves, but it's really more, there's more tail of the tape there. There's more authenticity when you've got a team, and you can constantly reevaluate evidence you get then and after. A lot of times you won't realize a lot of this happened until you're reviewing the footage after the whole investigation, because you hear things on the video or in the tape that you didn't hear. Real quick, and I'll let you go. I'm going to wrap the podcast up. So if you got any questions or comments, please feel free to drop them in now. But there's a section on werewolves.com that has paranormal evidence. And some of that evidence is when I wasn't looking for it. It's just me riding along in the dark of the night. My co-pilot is somewhere behind me or ahead of me, and I'm talking into the camera because I'm filming it, because all these experiences are epic for me, and I want to share them. And all of a sudden, you'll hear a voice. And I didn't hear the voice when I was doing this. The person doing the editing, one of my Wolf Driver Pit Crew people, Melissa, she would just go through all these videos meticulously just to find the best footage, the best way to present it to everybody. And she would hear sometimes some of these voices, and she would go back and listen. Is that Bill? I mean, there's nobody else with me. So if it ain't me and I'm talking and something's coming over me, then it's something else. And I didn't even know this happened. And she would just pull this. She'd say, look at this, Bill. And I'd be like talking about temperature here is about 62. And something would say, cool. I don't, it was bizarre and had no idea. So this isn't anything I set up. It just makes you think more when I'm out there in these environments and I am by myself, and you're thinking that what could be transpiring here. So voices and every other aspects can be going on, and you not visually hear them because it's not at an audible level for us to hear. That's why some of this equipment turns it into that audible level. But when it gets onto a recording device, it could be put into a spectrum that we can hear, an audio spectrum that we can hear, or maybe see. So when you see orbs and other anomalies, you could really, it makes you think, it makes the mind wonder. But these voices were really, blew my mind because I wasn't setting out for anything. I'm just riding along with the dogs. It's the dogs panting. They certainly weren't talking. It's the sometimes a little bit from the electric motor, from the electric dog sled on wheels, and then it's me. So if something is kind of making a conversation in between of what I'm saying or over top of me, then it's something strange is going on. That made me more of a believer too. I'm just like, wow. So Melissa isn't doing that, so she's not going over the equipment as much. And now I used to record the runs here. I did for a while in full lengths, and these adventures I do could be 3 or 4 hours with the dogs or longer. So it takes a lot to go through one of those videos. So a lot of times I don't keep the camera rolling the whole time, and I'm not as astute to it. She would meticulously look over everything, but she's got busy with other stuff right now, so she's not able to do that. But who knows, maybe in the future. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I really do. Got any questions or comments? I know I went a little bit off on the werewolves, but it's really an important aspect to what I do, and it makes it a nice way to rest the dogs and to keep us on the keep our how should I say, keep us sharp. I'm the Wolf Driver, and I'm signing off. We are planning tomorrow would be another adventure, but because of forecasted rain all over the areas we would roam, it's not going to be possible. So we're going to probably just do some work on bikes. I got really cool bike designs coming up. Wait till you see some of the stuff. I've got all 4 dogs going to be able to run in one line and be basically each dog will be a leader. So look for that on a Seiko cart. That is out of this world. And hopefully Friday we'll be out there. We could, if depending on weather, if it changes, I will try my best to get the dogs out. I try at least 3 times a week plus activities at home. So stay tuned. Any other questions or comments, feel free to leave them there. Thanks so much for everyone again for tuning in and for your input. Have a wonderful day.